We are at our last, the last lap, and I wouldn't say we saved the best to last, but pretty much the best to last in this great panel that we have coming up. And to lead us, we have a longtime collaborator, Emily Cashman Kirstein, who's going to moderate the panel. She leads child safety public policy at Google, working to ensure that children have safer and enriching online experiences. And she currently serves on the board of FOSI, the Tech Coalition, and on the global policy board of the We Protect Global Alliance. So she's a very busy person. Prior to joining Google, she led the policy team at Thorn and a tech-focused nonprofit committed to ending online child sexual abuse. Please join me in welcoming onto the stage Emily and her wonderful panelists.
Hello, hello, and good evening. Good evening. We've made it. Thank you for sticking with us to the end. We are very aware that we are what stands in between you all and happy hour. So our hope is this will be loose and fun. We'll learn some things. I will say that we had, in fact, considered having happy hour early on stage here, but these women were kind enough to stand in solidarity with me, for which I'm very grateful. So, in all seriousness, though, we're thrilled to be with you to talk about how to build better with and for teens. And that's been a huge theme today, as we've all seen, and I think for obvious and really good reason. So as Stephen said, I'm Emily Cashman Kirstein. I lead child safety public policy at Google. I've had the honor and pleasure of being on FOSI's board for the past 2 years, and Google is really proud to support FOSI and the work that they do. You saw this in the research this morning, and we have a bunch of Googlers in the room who you should find and talk to after or at our booth. And they really are, in my biased opinion, all stars in terms of building more enriching online experiences for kids and teens. And I say that knowing that we're very aware that we can't do that in a silo, right? We can't be doing that without engagement and hearing from folks on the ground and having wonderful experts talk to us that are up here, like the ones up here today. So I'll let them dive a bit more into their incredible work as we go along, but I'll quickly introduce our esteemed group of panelists here. So first we have, I'm gonna go Kati Morton, who is a licensed family and marriage therapist and YouTube creator. We have Jessica Janze, who is a psychologist at the Child Minds Institute. We have Jinan O'Connor, who is the VP of Brand Partnerships and Engagement at DonorsChoose. And last but certainly not least, our FOSI board chair and VP of Civility and Partnerships at Roblox, Tami Bhaumik. So we have a lot to fit in 26 minutes, but we'll get started then. So Kati, you have built a global online community empowering teens and families to prioritize their mental health. And I know you've had teens on your channel as well, talking through all these things. Can you tell us more about your work and also any best practices you have in terms of building for teens and content creation from there?
Yeah, pleasure to be with you all. Like I said, my name is Kati Morton. I'm a licensed therapist, and I've been creating content online since 2011. So definitely OG in the space, but I educate about mental health, and we all know mental health doesn't care your age or where you're from or anything, and so we try to make it as easy to digest for all sorts of people. And I think, as weird as this is gonna sound, one of the things that I've learned being online is that teens don't wanna be talked down to as if they don't know. And so I find that I'm much more successful when I'm creating content, when I make it at a level as if like we're all on the same playing field, because in a lot of ways we are, but also they want to be part of the bigger conversation. And then there's fancy things that my husband does in production that they like cutting quickly B-roll things and things like that to make it more dynamic. But I will say, even going forward now, I definitely see my younger audience in shorter form. So whether that's shorts on YouTube, shorts on Instagram or TikTok, keeping the content digestible in little bites. So whenever I talk to parents going to into my clinical work, I always tell parents, have conversations over time. Don't expect to dump it all at once and be able to get things through, because I'll even say that I can only have 1 or 2 takeaways at a time. So keeping things short and digestible, and then having repeat conversations. So then we're building from there. Those are the things that I've learned as I've been online since forever.
Wonderful. So Jessica, we'll go to you next. So I know ChildMind has done some really incredible research on teen and parent views about online experiences. And one of the things that stood out from our conversations earlier and from the research this morning is what those interactions between teens and parents are like. And we saw that on the panel a couple panels ago as well. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that research and sort of what parents can be learning from their teens, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Katie, you said it really well. I think taking small chunks of time to talk to kids, getting really curious about what they're going through, and the parents that I work with, I really empathize with them. They grew up in a time where social media really didn't exist largely, and now they're raising a generation of digital natives who largely know more than them. And so, I really try to empower the parents that I work with. That's not really a bad thing. I think it's actually kind of exciting. So, I challenge them to learn with their kids. So, maybe some things are coming up that you don't really know either. Maybe your teen or young person can educate you a little bit and to learn more about that. But really, having these conversations, even before social media starts, about the risks, obviously helping them understand, the things to watch out for. But more than that, really creating a space for these conversations to happen, about the good things that are happening, about what you're learning, about what you're finding out, so that when or if anything bad does happen, the kids and the teens already have a space to come to you to talk to you about that in a safe and knowledgeable way.
That's such an important point. And I know the piece on digital natives, I feel like we kind of breeze over it, but I know my former colleagues at Thorne had done some really interesting research. They do lots of interesting research, but one of the points that's always stuck with me is how, folks from older generations, we feel like there's a distinction between the online world and the offline world, and that is literally not how younger people are thinking about it these days. And, part of this is how do we meet them at that level versus taking how we think about things and go down. But Jessica, I'm wondering if you could also, if folks aren't familiar with ChildMind, just give us a little bit more background on your organization.
Sure, I would love to. So the ChildMind Institute is an independent nonprofit agency. We're based in New York City, and we really have 3 focuses. We focus on science, education, and care. So for science, our big research initiative is called the Healthy Brain Network, which is an open science database of over, I'm blanking on the numbers right now, but a huge number of youth aged 5 to 21 in our database. So that's all open to the global science community, so we can advance care and understanding of these processes and to really find evidence-based ways to help our youth.
Amazing, thank you. Jinan, so we are so focused at FOSI, the Family Online Safety Institute, and in many of our professional roles here about the intersection between kids and teens online. And at DonorsChoose, you have a unique perspective to give us insights into what educators are seeing on the ground in the offline world, and what are, I'd love for if you could tell us more about DonorsChoose, 1, and 2, what are you hearing from educators on the ground that can help us inform how to be building better experiences for teens online?
Yep, great. Happy to be here. I'll give you the quick DonorsChoose story. The quick version is 24 years ago, a high school teacher was making photocopies of a book and thought there had to be a better way to get resources into the hands of his kids than for him to be doing that himself. I see some head nods, possibly from teachers in the audience right now. And DonorsChoose was born that way by this idea of could there be a space where teachers could come together with individual donors who would be willing to support teachers in getting the things they need in their classroom? So we're an online platform for teachers. They come on our site, they post projects for things they need in their classroom. We get them funded through individuals and Google, and many people who are in the audience today. We get them funded, and then we send the materials to the schools. So 24 years later, we have a pretty good understanding of what's going on from a data perspective about what teachers need and what they want in the classroom. And in the last 5 years, what we've seen is a 3,800% increase in the number of project requests around mental health. Wow. So we're talking about like going from about 500 projects to 23,000 projects from teachers requesting help in the classroom. And our teachers are essentially sounding the alarm and saying, we need more resources that are going to help our students around their mental health, around their emotional well-being. And what they're doing is they are requesting items like flexible seating. We were backstage talking about stools versus these chairs. When I was in school back in the 1900s, we sat at hard desks and hard tables. Other people, same thing. And now, same thing, right? And now teachers are requesting like bouncy chairs and soft cushions and things like this to engage students better. They're making requests for art supplies. So think painting, watercolor, clay. They're making requests for personal hygiene. Imagine being a teenager and coming to school and you don't have deodorant at home, or you weren't able to wash your clothes before you came, and the impact that might have. And so teachers are really thinking about the emotional well-being of their students. And as we think about moving the translation from offline to online, you can sort of take those as data points, right? If we're talking about flexible seating, that's engagement. That's the data point there. So how do you create more engagement in an online community? When we're talking about journaling for mental health, or if we're talking about art supplies, we're thinking about the emotional resilience of students. So how do you create opportunities online where you're teaching social emotional learning to students and incorporating that into what you're doing? And teachers are also asking for educational kits and games. And so in that space, they're thinking about connectivity. So what can you do in an online space that is taking these data points from the classroom and carry them over into online?
That's really great, and I think also reflective of what we saw in the research this morning, where both teens and parents are putting mental health front and center of what they're looking for. And on the artistic piece, Katie, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts here, but that to me is about the desire to engage, right? The desire to create things like that, and just kind of thinking through different aspects of what that could mean, certainly. Or any of the folks on the panel, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general we do, like I have more engagement on like TikTok, Instagram short form, which I think speaks to the fact that that's what they're really looking for. Like we're saying, shorter conversations, popping in and popping out. I definitely think that it's just like the way that my brain works. I'm like, okay, well that's the content, but then like teachers need support. So then like, how do we do stuff for that? Because I think when I think about content, I always think of like education as a whole about mental health, because other generations don't always know either. And I think that we definitely have this like gap, because the younger generation is like craving it, searching for it, looking for it. And then parents sometimes are left like, I don't know what that means. I don't know this term they're using. I talk about lots of stuff on my channel. Go find it. I'll hopefully describe it in a very easy to digest way. But there are a ton of resources out there. And I think knowing that there's that big of a need, just if you're a therapist, create content online, because there's a need for that, to have it accessible no matter where you are, no matter what your means. There should be more resources.
And really quick, teachers are also telling us, to your point here, teachers are telling us that they're really eager for more time, right? And training in some cases of what should I be putting into my classrooms to make sure that I'm creating these spaces for my students where they feel welcomed and they feel engaged, they feel valued in the classroom.
Yeah.
One resource that we recently developed at the Child Mind Institute in partnership with the government of California is called the Healthy Minds, Thriving Kids. I don't know if anyone has heard about it, but it's this really great resource. It's all evidence-based, and it's mental health content largely created with children and youth, and it's all free. It's on our website, and I really love it. We have it targeted toward elementary kids and middle school and high school. It's really for parents and educators and individuals. I mean, I've used some of them in my sessions as well, but they're really wonderful. Check them out.
We'll be using that.
Yeah, please. I mean, they're
Thank you for
fantastic.
that tip.
Even just watching them, they're just so fun. Yeah, and a lot of our high school ones are actually high school students teaching, like through the video format, these concepts basically, hopefully to other high school students. So it's sort of in the language, it's more approachable, hopefully really getting a lot of
I
that
think
out.
it's easier for them to hear it from a peer versus,
Yes.
because something that I've always tried to do, and I notice what resonates and doesn't, is if, again, like the not talking down to people, like I know better. I always joke, I'm like, I like am aware of what's better. Doesn't mean I do better all the time. And I think coming at it, that is just something that's easier for people to hear, especially children.
Yep. And I think to the point you were making, Jessica, about, we've built this for and with young people, but it's also good for the parents to see. I think we got a lot of that feedback. We created a teen generative AI literacy guide, and it was developed for and with teens, but the feedback we got was from adults being like, oh no, this is actually really great. So keeping that in mind as well. But Tami, certainly at FOSI and through both of our companies, we very much understand that a 9-year-old is not the same as a 16-year-old, and therefore need to build accordingly. And I know Roblox is doing some really interesting work with teens, and I'm wondering if you can just give us some more insight into that and how you all are approaching this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So at Roblox, I've learned so much in my 8 years at Roblox, and I've learned so much from our young developers on the platform, right? They are incredible. And the reason why Roblox is so popular is it's because young people are creating content for other young people. And that's the secret sauce. People always come up to us and say, why is Roblox so popular? It's because it's authentic, real content that's being created on topical areas that are important to teens. And so, one of the things, I lead an area called the Civility Initiative at Roblox, and my team focuses on 3 areas. Civility Initiative focuses on safety, so again, how to use our parental controls, how to use our safety controls. We work with our policy teams to develop really thoughtful approaches to keep our platform safe. The other area is mental health. So you can't have fun on Roblox if you don't feel safe, right? So we really, really want to make sure that the mental health aspects are addressed as well. And then the final is digital and media literacy, making sure that our community has the knowledge and the tools in order to stay safe, to feel empowered, and to really, really focus in on if they see bad content or bothersome content, they know where to report it, how to report it, and what's most importantly, how to mentally process it. So that's the area of the Civility Initiative that we lead at Roblox. One of the most important things that I've seen, and this was about a year and a half ago, we hosted in partnership with the Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital. There's some of you in the audience, so thank you for that partnership. We hosted an event, and it worked on a hypothesis of in 5 to 10 years from now, the online world can be safer and more civil than in real life. If we were to make that happen, what would need to happen in technology innovation, policy, and education? We brought together 100 thought leaders from all over the world, from industry, safety NGOs, academics, researchers, all of these people with lots of letters behind their names who were professionals. And we also brought teens. To make a long story short, I'll cut to the chase. Through every single of the 3 pillars that we focused on, what came out so resolutely was include youth meaningfully, include teens meaningfully throughout every aspect of identifying a problem, coming up with a solution, and iterating from then on. And I can say, speaking from industry, we do focus groups, we do research, but typically it's they come in, here's their opinion, and we usher them out. We don't really include youth meaningfully from end to end. And so I think that that's really an important area. Coming out of that, we have opened up a whole teen engagement area within Roblox, coming out of those workshops. So we actually just closed applications, apologies for anybody who missed it, but closed applications for our first teen council, which will be rolling out in Q1. So we're really, really excited about that. And their role is really going to be providing input to help make our product safer and more civil, but then also creating materials from teens for teens. So again, going back to that authenticity, is that they're going to listen to peers, and it's going to be much more effective than big companies and professionals coming and telling them, and it feels very finger waggy. So we really want to focus on making sure that that content is valuable and very, very authentic.
Yep. And I think we saw on one of the panels earlier with Camilla and how she knew the boundaries, and she had a lot of really great insights. And one of the things I took away from that was very much, she's like, the digital footprint is real. Like, yes, like you get it, and that shouldn't be a surprise to any of us.
Yeah, and what I really like is the research that was said. I was so excited to see the research, because the research literally supports exactly what we are saying. Teens are looking for content and information to be educated from other teens. They're holding themselves accountable. They're the ones who are in the trenches. They're the ones who are experiencing these day-to-day things. So who best to be able to provide input and guidance? It's your friends, right?
No, so important. And maybe just to piggyback on what you were saying, we can go maybe just really quickly through, but you were talking about how at sometimes there are teens that come in and come out of different companies or different pieces of our work streams. But if any of you had some advice or best practices or things that you'd like maybe the audience to take away with in terms of how to better include teen voices into our workflows. Tami, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it took these digital civility workshops for us to wake up and go, wow, we need a strategy around this that really helps us incorporate teen voice. And so we are developing that strategy. It's an integral part of our corporate strategy. And my advice is take this opportunity in whatever you're doing to authentically integrate teen voice into your business strategy, because it really is a business strategy, right? If you can have teens help you create a much more authentic space, it'll increase engagement, it'll increase users, it'll increase adoption.
Yeah, and I just think that goes for everything. That goes for talking about policies that affect teens. It goes about talking about products that teens are going to use. It just feels like it should be in every space in a way that may not be as obvious. And so it is kind of, how do we work this in? I'm curious if any of the other folks on stage have thoughts.
I mean, I was really excited to see the research this morning, and I completely agree with you. I think including meaningful conversations and really taking it seriously. When I work with parents and they come to me and they're nervous about certain things around social media and they want to set rules and do all these things, and then I sit with the teens and talk to them about it, they usually already know, and they have ideas about how maybe they want to set some new rules for themselves and what supports they need. And so I really find that it's true when we start to listen to youth and believe that they have some knowledge here that maybe we could really learn from, we're gonna get a lot out of it.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think if we're going to ask for help, we should take it into consideration, because so often I find that people will bring other people on, or we're going to have these meetings and then nothing comes out of them and nothing is actually followed through with. And I'm like, if you're going to ask for their input, you should take it, because they do have their own view of things. They do have their insight. Even just like the other day, one of my neighbors has a 17-year-old, and she personally deleted TikTok, sorry guys, but she deleted it because she was like, I have finals and I'm not keeping up with things because I'm like pulled to this. And so for my own mental health, we think of, or I still think of teens, I should be honest, like being wild and crazy and like erratic or whatever. But if we pay attention and we listen, they've grown up with this stuff. I don't know what that's like. And I'm sure without a shadow of a doubt that my perspective would be different if I grew up online, and I always had these things at my fingertips. You know, they'll never know the Dewey Decimal System like we will, but they'll know a lot more.
So useful, too.
Yeah.
Several
So
important
useful.
points made there. Yeah.
I love this concept because I started as an elementary special education teacher, so I have a place in my heart for teachers. And I feel like what we're talking about is really, in some aspects, mirroring what happens in classrooms. The 24 years of DonorsChoose, we've had over 900,000 teachers who've been on our site. So of those 900,000 teachers, they're telling us what students need, right? They're essentially the voice of the student. If you're walking into a classroom and the teacher has fully embraced what students need, then they're building out their classroom to be reflective of the student needs. They're making it personalized. They're making the connections happen. And they're doing that by essentially listening to their students and then creating a space that's helpful for them. So it just tags on with what everybody's saying. It's so important to have their voice at the table. When we did an initiative with Google this year, we did a mental health initiative, and at the beginning of the school year, we surprised a school in LA, and Selena Gomez came into the school.
It was very cool.
It was very exciting. And she did a journaling exercise with the students. And it wasn't for the flashy moment to have in the press, but it was because Selena has talked openly about mental health, and doing the journaling exercise gave them all a safe place to authentically, express themselves through writing. And it was another example of listening to the needs of the students and then creating that environment for them. So I think we should always be bringing, especially our teens, be bringing them to the table in anything that we're creating, and if we're building something for them, they should be right along with us.
So in these civility workshops, it was really funny. We had these round tables, these round tables, where we had all of these incredibly talented professionals. And we were talking about some subject, and we all agreed, and we were all so smart and brilliant. And there was a 17-year-old at the table, and I look over, and she's going like this. And I just stopped the conversation. I go, tell us what you're thinking. She goes, that's not how we use it. That's just not
Simple.
how we use it. It was just, she cut to the chase, and it just shut everybody up, right? So it was really apparent at that moment that we need to include their voices because we really don't know what their day-to-day is like.
No, so important. Well, 30 minutes certainly isn't enough time to really dig into the topics as much as we could and what they deserve, but luckily the day is not quite over. I'm wondering if each of you could maybe give us, and we'll start with Jinan and go down, briefly give us one key takeaway from either, the panel today, broadly, or kind of a conversation starter to go into happy hour in terms of what you think we should continue this conversation.
Sure, I'll try to come at them in one briefly. The takeaway is this. I think it's so important for the point that I made at the beginning. Mental health is the fastest growing category for project requests on DonorsChoose. That's huge. That's something that we should all be paying attention to. And it's partnerships that we did with Google and partnerships with other are just the tip of the iceberg. The partnership that we did with Google, we were able to impact 1 million students by getting 10,000 project requests funded. But everybody in this room really has the ability to make a difference in this way, right? So my assignment, I was a teacher, so I'll give you an assignment. My assignment to you all is, as you go into happy hour and you're talking to one another, think about what kinds of partnerships that you can be creating that are inspired by collaboration with one another to essentially bridge the online to offline gap. I think that each of us in this room could really listen to teachers, amplify their voices, and drive systemic change by responding to the needs that we're hearing that teachers are sharing with us every day.
I'll just reiterate what I said earlier, so it's not too much to remember. Make time for multiple conversations, multiple touch points. When we're trying to learn something new and we're trying to bridge a gap and we're trying to create connection, it takes more than just one and done. That's too much for us to digest. That's too much for us to get through. So as you try to have these conversations and hear from, the students, if you're working on a project or if it's your own children, plan to have these conversations regularly and make them short, digestible, and something that you say, yeah, we'll return to this again, or I'd love to hear from you again, or I'm here, and make it a regular, weekly, daily thing.
Really important. And thank you for reinforcing.
Well said. Yeah.
The therapist in me.
Oh, wow. that was well said. I guess what I would say is, you know, a theme that I've heard throughout the day is these conversations that we need to be having with our young people over and over, you know, not stopping, doing it when they're little, all of these things. I think I would challenge the audience to think about, you know, that whole conversation has been how parents can have conversations with young people, but how can we be doing it from other areas as well, as teachers, as, you know, policymakers, as educators, as therapists. Let's bring the conversation in, you know, even into a larger space as well.
Definitely.
In this 10 seconds that I have, it is, so just incorporate it into your strategies in terms of incorporating teen voice. And in the cocktail hour, find the organizations that have teen panels that you can tap into, because you don't necessarily have to just do it by yourself and on your own. There are a lot of different wonderful organizations that have teen panels that you can tap into.
Amazing. And we are right on time.
You're welcome. For us.
Thank you so much to this incredible group of experts on the stage, and thank you all for staying with us.
Thank you.